Christ resurrected? The Bible tells us very clear. What day Christ was resurrected? Was he resurrected on the seventh day? No, he was resurrected what day? The first day. So if the first day is Sunday, the seventh day is what? Saturday. But people are going to church on Sunday. But we need to go to church on Saturday because this is the Sabbath of the Lord. And it says here, remember. That's why the word says remember, because there's a meaning why he used the word remember. The first word being used here, remember. Because sometimes we tend to forget. So God says, I have to put this word remember so that they will be reminded. That's why I tell you, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh is the Sabbath of the Lord. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son nor thy daughter. In other words, on the seventh day, that's why we're here. We keep the Sabbath day, we observe this day. We don't do any work because this day is being set aside for worship only. Okay? For worship. It says here, all who keep the seventh day signify by this act that they are worshippers of Jehovah. Thus the Sabbath is the sign of man's allegiance to God as long as there are any upon the earth to serve him. Okay? The fourth commandment is the only one of all the 10 in which are found both the name and the title of the lawgiver. It is the only one that shows by whose authority the law is given. Thus it contains the seal of God affixed to his law as evidence of its authenticity and binding force. You know, when you talk about the seal of the United States, remember the seal of the United States, it has the name of the president. And what is the next step of that? You have that title, the name, the title, and its territory. Those are three things actually in the seal. It has a name, the title, and is the territory. That's it. And only in the fourth commandment where you can find the seal of God. Because in the fourth commandment, you see the name, which is God. And what is his title? The Creator. And what is the territory? Heaven and earth. Only in the fourth commandment where you can find that. That's why the fourth commandment is seal of God. And also, it says here that when we actually keep the seventh-day Sabbath, we are worshippers of Jehovah. That's why if you go to Ezekiel, it's in the Bible, okay, in Ezekiel 20, verse 12 and 20, it says here, hallow my Sabbaths, and they shall be a sign, it says here, okay, and hallow my Sabbaths, and they shall be a sign between me and you, that ye may know that I am the Lord your God. That's Ezekiel 20, verse 20. And verse 12, moreover also I gave them my Sabbaths to be a sign between me and them, that they might know that I am the Lord that sanctify them. So the Sabbath actually is a sign of God's people, that when we actually keep the seventh-day Sabbath, we are worshippers of God. Okay? We are worshippers of God. Okay? Now, so when we are keeping the seventh-day Sabbath, that means thou shalt not do any work. In Isaiah 58, remember those texts in Isaiah 58, 13 and 14? If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, and let's open the Bible, and doing your own pleasure. Let's look at that in Isaiah 58, because there are some important points here that we can learn. Isaiah 58, 13 and 14. It says here, okay? It says here, if thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day. See, the seventh-day Sabbath is God's holy day. And call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of the Lord, honorable, and shalt honor him, not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words. In other words, you cannot actually speak common things on the Sabbath. The Sabbath is set aside for God. In other words, speaking your own words. Now, what are those own words when you do on the Sabbath, on the seventh day? Just like when you're discussing something like your job, your how much money you make, or or business, anything that is not related on the seventh-day Sabbath, you are actually speaking your own words. Then you will be violating the Sabbath. That's why verse 14, then shalt thou delight thyself in the Lord, and I will cause thee to ride upon the high places of the earth, and feed thee with the heritage of Jacob thy father, for the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it. So if you honor the Sabbath, the Lord will honor you. Remember, Jesus said, them that honor me, I will honor. That's it. If you honor God, He will honor you. That's why it says here, those who discuss business on matters or lay plans on the Sabbath are regarded by God as though engaged in the actual transaction of business. To keep the Sabbath holy, we should not even allow our minds to dwell upon things of a worldly character. And the commandment includes all within our gates. Okay? So it's important that we keep the Sabbath. Okay, now let's go to the sixth commandment now. The fifth commandment, sorry. What is the fifth commandment? Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. You know, this is the only commandment with promise, actually. You know, those children who honor their parents, they will have long life. According to this commandment, they will have long life. Now, when the children were young, we take care of them, right? But when the parents are already old, who's supposed to take care of them? Is it the convalescent hospital? No, the kid's supposed to be taken care. But the world is changing. Instead of the children, no, they send them to the nursing home. And the nursing home people take care of them. And so they give them anything. They're not being fed. That's why it says here that if we only follow God's way, God's idea, it says here, parents are entitled to a degree of love and respect which is due to no other person. God Himself, who has placed upon them a responsibility for the souls committed to their charge, has ordained that during the earlier years of life, parents shall stand in the place of God to their children. And he who rejects the rightful authority of his parents is rejecting the authority of God. Okay? The fifth commandment requires children not only to yield respect, submission, and obedience to their parents, but also to give them love and tenderness, to lighten their cares, to guard their reputation, and to succor and comfort them in old age. That is very clear. In old age. It also enjoins respect for ministers and rulers and for all others to whom God has delegated authority. Okay, now let's go to the sixth commandment. Now, the sixth commandment, it says here, thou shalt not kill. How can we violate this commandment? We don't shoot people. We don't stab people. We don't beat people. We don't do that. We're not violators, but we can easily violate this by not taking care of ourselves. If we put anything bad to our body, remember our body is the temple of God, right? 1 Corinthians 3:16, 17. Our body is the temple of God. And whoever defiles this body, God will also what? Destroy. So we cannot actually defile. See, it says here, all acts of injustice that tend to shorten life, the spirit of hatred and revenge. So when you hate somebody, when you cherish this hatred, you are violating this commandment. Anything, it says here, indulgence of any passion that leads to injurious acts towards others. Or it says here, neglect of caring, okay? Or all self-indulgence of unnecessary deprivation or excessive labor that tends to injure health. All these are to a greater or less degree violations of the sixth commandment. So when you are smoking, when you are drinking wine that is injurious to the body, you are actually violating this commandment. But we can correct this. If we want to honor God, we want to straighten our lives, then we need to obey this and follow this. Because if we do it, we will be violating. Okay? We will be violating. So, I used to drink before. When I was in my college days, I also tried smoking as well. But I was not really converted yet. I was not convicted yet. But when the Lord convicted me, that changes the lifestyle, because we need to straighten our life, we don't want to violate this commandment. Remember, the Ten Commandments is very important. Now let's go to the next one here. What is the seventh commandment? The seventh commandment is, thou shalt not commit adultery. Okay? Do we violate this commandment? It says here, this commandment forbids not only acts of impurity, but sensual thoughts and desires, or any practice that tends to excite them. Purity is demanded not only in the outward life, but in the secret intents and emotions of the heart. Christ, who taught the far-reaching obligation of the law of God, declared the evil thought or look to be as truly sin as is the unlawful deed. Now, you can actually read that also in the even in Matthew 5:28, we're being told there that by just looking at something, if you put it in your heart, you lust after, then you are committing sin against God. And we cannot do that, because if we do that, we are violating this commandment. Okay? So it says here, all who profess to keep the commandments of God possess their bodies in sanctification and honor. They profess to be standing upon the elevated platform of eternal truth, keeping all the commandments. Therefore, if they indulge in sin, if they commit fornication and adultery, their crime is of tenfold greater magnitude. So you have more punishment actually when you do that. So it is important that we don't do this. Otherwise, we will receive the punishment of God. Now, let's go to the eighth commandment. What is the eighth commandment? Thou shalt not steal. Okay? Thou shalt not steal. How do we steal? Do we steal anything from God? Yes, we are stealing from God if we are not fulfilling this. Wherein have we robbed thee, right? We don't actually, the word steal is getting something without permission. That is stealing. We don't do that. There's people today who goes to the store and then just get anything and hide it in the body, and I've seen that in YouTube actually. I think in San Francisco, there's people going inside the store and just, and they cannot call the police because, maybe the police is...
No, they're allowing it.
They're allowing it? Okay, that's a problem. We cannot do that. Here, it says here, Malachi 3:8-9, will a man rob God? Yet ye have robbed me. But ye say, wherein have we robbed thee? In tithes and offerings. Ye are cursed with a curse, for ye have robbed me, even this whole nation. Haggai 1:6-9, ye have sown much, and bring in little. Ye eat, but ye have not enough. Ye drink, but ye are not filled with drink. Ye clothe you, but there is none warm. And he that earneth wages to put it into a bag of holes. Verse 9, why, said the Lord of hosts? Because of mine house that is waste. And ye run every man unto his own house. They are not, they pray, Lord, please give me a good job, and the Lord answered the prayer. They give them a good job. And then when the job is there, they forgot. They forget. And that is the tendency of many people today, They have robbed God. That's it. They have violated this commandment. And we cannot do that, because if we do, we will be violating this commandment. Now let's go to the ninth commandment here. Okay? Let's go to the ninth commandment. What is the ninth commandment? Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Now this is something that we need to understand as well, because this ninth commandment actually includes false speaking. When you're not telling the truth, when you're lying, it is a violation of the ninth commandment. It says here, false speaking in any matter. Every attempt or purpose to deceive our neighbor is here included. An intention to deceive is what constitutes falsehood. By a glance of the eye, a motion of the hand, an expression of the countenance, a falsehood may be told as effectually as by words. All intentional overstatement is also a violation of the ninth commandment. So when you